let's play this from Chris Hayes. And I have yet to really dig into this, but I can tell you just from being on Twitter that Ronan Farrow's new book is out. I don't know if it's quite available yet. It's about to be released. In it, he details how the story that NBC News quashed his investigation, his writing into Harvey Weinstein. And also that there are allegations against the head of NBC, I think News it is, a guy named Andy Lack, and others at the top that they were trying to protect Matt Lauer. And all this stuff was going down actually around, just coincidentally, around the time that I was getting fired and rehired by NBC. I just remember this because we had done a video about Matt Lauer, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more, on his interview with Anne Hathaway. And I had said at the time, like, this guy's creepy. There's a lot more stuff here. And that video, obviously, that week just that I was getting fired also happened to just go viral. I think we had like 2.5 million views. But Ronan Farrow has made some serious allegations that are rather damning for a news organization. And there was a lot of people who were waiting to see if anybody at MSNBC who in any other circumstance would have Ronan Farrow on, as soon as he could get to the studios, if it was to talk about anybody else. And they hadn't. And then last night, at the close of his show, Chris Hayes did something that I think, frankly, took a lot of guts to do. Here it is.
In fact, the insidious destructive force of the path of least resistance is everywhere you look.
Oh, wait, pause it. Go back a little bit. Yeah, it's only 2 minutes. I mean, it's important to hear the context of what he's saying. Because he goes on to basically contextualize it, I think, in a really important way.
Over the last few weeks, as impeachment has dominated both the news and this show, I've been watching with increasing horror and bafflement as the NBA has enforced a kind of silence and speech code on its players and management for fear of offending the Chinese government and Chinese basketball fans. After a single tweet in support of the Hong Kong protesters by a Houston Rockets executive, the NBA has scrambled to lock down any other signs of criticism of the Chinese government, hoping to preserve access to an extremely lucrative and growing market for the sport. Now, of course, this kind of shying away from confrontation, choosing the path of least resistance, quite familiar in the news because it's what so many Republican members of Congress do every day when confronted with the bile, bigotry, and rank corruption and abuse of power with a man who's the head of their party. But it's important to note that it is not limited to them. In fact, the insidious destructive force of the path of least resistance is everywhere you look. Heck, I feel the tug of it myself as my own news organization is embroiled in a very public controversy over its conduct. As you've probably seen in his new book, Catch and Kill, my former colleague Ronan Farrow contends that NBC News slow-walked and then ultimately killed his reporting on Harvey Weinstein's sexual harassment and assault because it was intimidated by Weinstein and didn't want to cross him. Most distressingly, Farrow suggests NBC News was worried about the allegations of sexual assault and harassment against Matt Lauer coming out as a result of reporting on Weinstein and desperately wanted to avoid that. In Farrow's view, he was unable to break through what was effectively a conspiracy of silence from NBC News management. Now, NBC News vigorously denies this account. The president of NBC News, Noah Oppenheim, called Farrow's book a conspiracy theory in a memo sent out today, citing an internal NBC investigation that concluded that the extremely upsetting allegations against Lauer were not known internally at NBC. NBC has called any suggestion it did no false and offensive. And Oppenheim and others have also maintained since Farrow's departure 2 years ago, the Weinstein story was never broadcast because it lacked sufficient on-the-record sourcing, even after NBC supported Farrow's assignment for 7 months. One thing, though, is indisputable. Ronan Farrow walked out of NBC News after working on the Weinstein story and within 2 months published an incredible article, The New Yorker, that not only won a Pulitzer, but helped trigger a massive social and cultural reckoning that continues to this day. It is the kind of journalism that you want to do as a journalist, that everyone who works in this business should want to facilitate. Of course, there's a reason it took so long for the true story about Weinstein to be told, for the many allegations of him to stay locked in a vault. And that's because time and again, the path of least resistance for those with power was to not cross Weinstein or his army of friends and lawyers. Same goes for the many, many, many other powerful predators that we've come to know about. The path of least resistance is always there, beckoning seductively with an entirely plausible cover story. You've got bigger fish to fry. This isn't the hill to die on. The story isn't ready. But of course, it's the very ease of that path that makes it the enemy, the kind of work that we as journalists are supposed to do.
I think he's going to be on tonight. But that's the kind of thing that, they'd show up at the commissary the next day, and the people who hand out, the main course are like, sorry, there's not enough left for you. I mean, that's a scary thing to do, I think, from his perspective, and he is, he's obviously, his show is very prominent. He's on the 8 p.m. slot, but he's not, it's not the head honcho over there. And for him to do that, I think takes a lot of guts. And so, there seems to me to be some reckoning that needs to happen over at NBC News.
Was Andy Lack threatened by Russia?
Very possible.
It raises some very interesting questions.
Well, don't mock the paper thing. A lot of people do that. I don't want to.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that Rachel Maddow is taking the paper thing to
Really?
Oh, you're not even doing. You got. It's the rustling. It's the this thing going on.
You got to just show that it's.
You already have the look. You don't need to replicate
like
the paper.
ASMR.
Jesus.